Christine Western Chandler, commonly known by his internet pseudonym Christian, is arguably one of the most well-documented internet personas of all time. Documentaries, websites, and thousands of articles have been made on him. But how did he achieve internet infamy, and what led him up to that point? It's the 24th of February, 1982, and Robert and Barbara Chandler have just given birth to their first child, the then Christopher Western Chandler. Chris believes that at this time his parents would have been incredibly proud, although no account of what they actually thought are present. They treated Chris as a king throughout his childhood, allowing him to spend the majority of time gaming and playing with Lego bricks. Chris has proclaimed multiple times that his first word was monkey, spoken at 6 weeks of age. He remains proud of this fact late into his 30s, despite it being provably unlikely that this was the case. Chris's first notable experience in life was his time spent with a reportedly abusive babysitter who would lock him in his room for hours at a time. He identifies this constraint of movement as the primary source of his special needs, despite the fact that abuse has not been refutably linked to causing autism. He also says this event was the catalyst for his lack of speech between the ages of 1 and 7. Due to his muteness, he was forced to attend James Madison University, and it was around this time he was first diagnosed with high-functioning Asperger's. Chris claims that the doctor said it was unlikely he would ever attend high school, let alone be able to write his own name. Apart from his abusive babysitter, Chris would have several other instances of mistreatment during his youth, most notably at the hands of Sarah Hammer, his childhood best friend. A notable occurrence was when Sarah convinced Chris that Casper the Friendly Ghost, a popular TV character, lived in the crawl space beneath her house. The naive Chris, susceptible to lies, shuffled his way through the hatch and into the darkness of the crawl space, only for Sarah to slam shut the entrance, leaving the terrified Chris alone in the dark. Another time where Sarah would take advantage of Chris's trusting demeanour was during honeysuckle season, where she convinced Chris to eat the tip of a honeysuckle, sometimes alleged to be poisonous. However, before Chris could meet her demands, his parents raced in and warned him of the danger of his mistake. Despite these occurrences, they seem to be more childhood pranks than any kind of malevolence on Sarah's part, as Chris has many fond memories of playing games together, specifically hide and seek, roller skating, and going to the park. In 1989, during an animatronic music event at a local mall, Chris was chosen from a crowd of children to come on stage. During the performance, the animatronic bear conductor, mishearing Christopher's name, referred to him as Christian. Inexplicably, this convinced Christian to legally change his name, taking it as a sign from God. In fact, to this day, Christian believes that the Holy Trinity is made of God Jesus. Chris does not, for some reason, differentiate between the two, and the animatronic bear conductor, taking the place of the Holy Spirit. Chris spent the 1990 to 1991 school year at Nathaniel Green Elementary School until he was removed from the school by his parents for unknown reasons. Chris claims the reason he was taken out of classes was that he was forcibly restrained by staff and made to sit on the lap of a principal. This event is what Chris implies to have been the start of his rampant homophobia, covered in later chapters. The issue went to court, and Christian was homeschooled through 5th grade, socially isolated with his mother. Since the county wanted to send Chris to a special school, the family relocated to Richmond so Chris could continue his education without special support in 1992. Finally, and potentially most crucially, is that Chris won a Sonic the Hedgehog Watch and Win sweepstakes competition in 1993. The objective of the competition was to garner views for a new Sonic the Hedgehog TV show by having Sonic say a phrase at the end of a program. By writing the phrases down and sending them in, viewers would be entered into a prize draw for a $1,000 shopping spree at KB Toys. The two winners were Chris and a 6-year-old girl from California who deemed to share the money with her class. This seminal event marks the end of Chris's childhood and his decay into the person he is today. Most importantly of all about this part of Chris's life is that it was broadcast to the nation. In the TV broadcast, Chris speaks with the same stuttered, pausing speech patterns he would later be known for. This is the only solid evidence that Chris Chan is not a highly intricate troll, ARG, or joke, and it is prized highly among those who monitor, document, and catalogue Chris. Of his early high school years, Chris remarks, "I had so many friends over there in high school, and I was just sad to leave. After I graduated, because I had to leave all my friends." This speech is interjected with a sigh before he states, "I had the good life." Chris attended Manchester High School, Virginia from 1996 to year 2000, and it is obvious from videos and interviews with him that Chris views this time as the happiest in his life. Adult Chris would longingly look back on these earlier days, going so far to reconstruct the high school out of Lego bricks to reenact events that happened there. One reason that high school may have been such a special time for Chris was that he was treated the same as other students. He proudly proclaims that, "I was in the mainstream throughout high school." Although the authenticity of this claim is up for debate, as leaked documents paint a bleak picture of Chris's work ethic, ability to write and comprehend literature, and difficulty with basic mathematics. Some of these documents appear to be from special education classes as well, further debunking the lie. What is generally agreed upon by Christorians, those who document Chris's life, is that he went to the same building as his peers, but had little in-lesson contact with them. Chris's social life during these times, however, would be the best it would ever be. He had a set of what he called gal pals, women who were his friends, which included the following characters: Kelly Anders, Chris's crush, Tiffany Gowan, Sarah Bevel, Miranda Mitchell, and Molly Qualls. He also had 2 male companions, although while speaking about them, he is much less enthusiastic. Their names were Joseph Herring and a man known only as Brian, who was the boyfriend of Sarah Bevel. Christian had trouble making friends of his own gender, viewing them as childish and immature, a bitter irony considering his current form. In truth, however, the majority Chris cites as his friends wouldn't be considered so by a common, non-autistic person. As he says himself, he spent little time with his group of friends outside of school, and in the Song of Christian, which I will perform shortly, he says his, quote, "loneliness is off the scale," unquote. In addition to this, the high school Chris attended operated on a bi-daily lunch timetable. On odd days, Chris would sit alone, and on even days, he would sit with friends. Chris failed to attend basic social encounters as well, including pep rallies and parties. This is a common trait among autists, as social gatherings and the noise they generate can cause stress to pent up. Years after he left high school, he was informed that none of his gal pals actually enjoyed his company and hung around with him mainly due to pity. This devastated Chris, as his entire high school career was recontextualized to have been entirely false. Part of Chris's high school was the incident on the bus. Chris's high school had 2 buses, one for the disabled children and one for the non-disabled kids. Up until age 15, Chris was allowed to ride what he calls the regular bus. However, after an altercation with another student, he was, quote, demoted, unquote, to the special ed bus. We will likely never know what exactly happened in this altercation, with Chris spinning multiple narrative threads, almost unintelligibly, about the incident. Despite the ambiguity, this is a coherent detail of the event. Chris and another child were, quote, in constant competition, unquote, to be first off the bus. One day, in their rush to leave the vehicle first, Chris and the other boy had a fight. How this started is unknown, with Chris simultaneously claiming he was punched and bled profusely, and also stating he was tripped and his glasses broke. Despite the chronology of the events, the outcome is clear, and Chris was forced to use the special ed bus for the rest of high school, a fact he detested, hating those who were, quote, slow in the mind, unquote. Needless to say, in Chris's fantasy Lego world, he always rides the normal bus to school. It's one of the last days of Christian's high school life, and he has just entered the room of his senior prom. He took his mother to prom, who spent the majority of time there eating burgers and generally ignoring Chris. Fortunately, Chris was asked to dance by his gal pal Tiffany Gowan, and this was to be the highlight of the entire experience for him. Despite this momentarily lapse in loneliness, multiple images exist of him standing alone, with a saddened demeanour and a lost look in his eyes. This will be the last time Chris interacted with his peers outside of school. Chris's graduation marked the beginning of his slip into insanity. Believing he was going to be awarded an art prize for some of his artistic endeavours despite never being promised it, he was shocked and hurt when another student received the award. In Chris's own words, "When I went up there to get mine," referring to his diploma, "I was feeling depressed, upset, crestfallen and ticked off. I took it without looking anyone in the eye, and I didn't shake anyone's hands. Soon after, I just walked the wrong way up the centre aisle and cried myself out." Although his mother comforted him, his father was less understanding, berating Chris for his tears. He apparently gave Tiffany a plush Psyduck Pokemon toy as a present. This event destroyed Christian so much that it would later be personified as Count Graduation in a short comic strip he made called Sonichu. After the whole graduation was over, Chris would go home, cry, and fall asleep. Unfortunately, his troubles had only just started, and the next couple of years, which he spent in college, would be the start of his invocation of ire from the internet. The Song of Christian. I hear America singing as I sing of myself, and you experience as I experience. The problems of yourself are my problems. The youth and the young singing cries of happiness, as you have sung the song of laughter. At age 6 weeks I sang this song of laughter. Then, at 1.5 years of age, the Lord put the mute button on me. There are my parents' song. They pulled me through to talk again at age 7. I am now 16 years old and good at talking enough to help me achieve new goals and Mario Raceway records, and to finish my homemade Nintendo Power magazine. The magazine's song, The Ballad of Sonic the Hedgehog on Game Boy, the rudeness of the teenager's song, the despicable mention of rude words and drugs. I am not afraid to speak, despite the hazardous flukes in America's song. My song that I sing, although I talk well, my peer relationship is low, and my loneliness is off the scale. Join me next time as we learn the next verse in Chris's song.